When I retired from the IRS, I thought I'd finally earned a little peace. 32 years of unraveling tax fraud, tracking offshore accounts, and sitting across from guys who swore their boat was a business expense. I figured I'd done my time. I bought a house in the suburbs, the kind with birdsong in the morning and neighbors who wave without asking your social security number. I was ready to plant tomatoes, drink black coffee in my robe, maybe yell at squirrels if I was feeling spicy. Instead, I got Karen. Well, technically her name was Marcia, but you know the type. Clipboard surgically attached to her arm. Sunglasses big enough to read your soul. Wears matching beige like it's tactical gear. And most importantly, she had no idea who she was dealing with. To her, I was just another retiree with weak boundaries and a Costco lawn chair, which suited me just fine. She introduced herself the third day after I moved in, marching across the lawn like she was entering a war zone. She didn't knock. She tapped, like the door had personally offended her. "You must be James," she said, her smile more warning label than welcome. "I'm Marcia, acting president of the Ridgepoint Acres HOA. We like to keep our neighborhood orderly." "Jim's fine," I said, wiping potting soil off my hands. She glanced at the flower pots like they might violate international law. "Well, Jim, I just wanted to make sure you received our community handbook. It covers everything: fence height, paint colors, acceptable porch furniture." She handed me a binder so thick it had a table of contents. "Oh good," I said. "Something to read while I wait to die." She didn't laugh. "I also noticed your mailbox is 2 inches above regulation height," she added, squinting at it like she'd trained for this moment her entire life. "Not a big deal, but we do ask for compliance." I smiled. "I'll lower it right after I align my chakras." That didn't land either. The first few weeks were mostly cold smiles and polite threats. She left a friendly reminder when my garbage bins weren't tucked in at exactly 8:01 a.m. A gentle nudge when I left a garden hose coiled visibly on the lawn. And once, she left an actual printed image of a regulation birdhouse taped to my door with a note, "For your reference." I ignored her. She didn't like that. Then came the first violation notice, official letterhead and everything. Unauthorized shed color. Must be painted Earth Harmony or HOA approved variant. Your gray is too industrial. My shed is gray. Like clouds. Like freedom. Like Marcia's soul. Instead of repainting it, I added a small sticker of a smiling sun on the door and waited. She came by 2 days later. Still not compliant. She sniffed, tapping her clipboard like she was conducting a military inspection. "Oh, the sticker didn't fix it," I said deadpan. I was playing with her. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to find out what happens when you pick the wrong guy to bully. The final straw came on a Tuesday. I was out grocery shopping, 43 minutes, tops, and when I got back, there were 2 landscaping contractors in my backyard. One had a shovel. The other had a can of spray paint. They were marking lines on my lawn like it was about to be a football field. "Hey," I shouted. "Did you lose your map or your mind?" The older guy blinked. "We were told this area was being reclassified as common space. HOA said it was already approved." I stared at him. "Approved by whom?" He shrugged. "Lady with the clipboard." I looked over. Half my hedge was gone, uprooted like weeds. My tomatoes? Trampled. Boot prints in the soil like someone had danced on them just to make sure I got the message. They'd moved the property stakes 4 feet into my yard. There wasn't even a note. No warning. No meeting. No vote. Just a quiet little land grab wrapped in the phrase "for the community." I didn't scream. I didn't storm over to her house and throw a tomato at her garage. No, that's not how I work. I've taken down millionaire tax evaders who thought Cayman Islands was a get-out-of-jail-free card. I've audited shell companies with better poker faces than Marcia. She had no idea that when she stepped onto my lawn, clipboard in hand, and uprooted my hedge, she wasn't starting a beautification project. She was declaring war. And now the bear was awake. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was angry, though I absolutely was, but because I was planning. You don't spend 3 decades at the IRS without learning how to take someone apart using nothing but paperwork, public records, and the overwhelming power of petty vengeance. Marcia had taken 4 feet of my yard. I was going to take everything else. Step 1. Confirmation. I dug out my property deed, the survey, and a dusty folder labeled "Important Stuff I'll Never Look at Unless Someone's Stupid." The original boundary markers matched the survey exactly. I measured every inch. Twice. Even let my laser level have a little fun. Guess what? The stakes had been moved 4 feet and 2 inches inward. Not just casually. Deliberately. Step 2. Photos. I documented everything. The destruction, the shifted boundary, the footprints in the crushed tomato plants. Yes, still bitter. And the fact that they left half a Dunkin' Donuts bag under my hydrangeas. A war crime, really. Step 3. The rules. HOAs love their rules. Love to wave them around like holy scripture. So I printed the entire Ridgepoint Acres HOA covenant. The digital version, of course, because I didn't want to waste paper on that much sanctimonious nonsense. And there it was, right in black and white. Any alteration or use of private property for HOA purposes requires written consent of the homeowner and a 2/3 vote of the board. No consent. No vote. Just Marcia, a landscaping crew, and a god complex. Now came the fun part. I called the county zoning office and asked if there had been any filings regarding HOA easements, property reclassifications, or construction permits tied to my lot. The woman on the phone actually laughed. "Oh, her again," she said. Apparently, Marcia had tried this stunt before, twice. Once to install a community compost station on a neighbor's corner lot, and once to carve out space for a reflection path that conveniently cut through a guy's koi pond. Both times, she filed paperwork after the work was started. Both times, it was denied. Both times, she claimed it was all a misunderstanding. "Would you like me to send you those filings?" the county clerk asked. "Please do," I said. And bless you. The next HOA meeting was coming up, and oh boy, was I ready. But before that, I figured it was time for a little preemptive strike. I made copies of the zoning files. I created a clean side-by-side comparison of my property survey and the current stake positions. I even printed out a little summary titled, "Invasion of the Lot Snatchers, a brief history of unauthorized HOA incursions." Then I dropped by Marcia's house. Now, I wasn't expecting a warm welcome, but I was hoping to see the twitch in her eye when she realized she'd poked a bear with a law degree level understanding of enforcement procedures. She opened the door wearing her usual cardigan and control ensemble. Her smile was forced. Her eyes, calculating. "James," she said. "Jim," I corrected. "Just wanted to give you something." I handed her the folder. "What's this?" "Oh, just some light reading. Property law, zoning violations, fraudulent use of HOA authority, bedtime stuff." Her smile froze. "You can't just..." "Sure I can. Also, fun fact, destroying private property without consent is technically vandalism. But I'm guessing you already know that." She tried to rally. "The board approved the expansion." "Cool," I said, pulling out a list of board member signatures. Because I asked each of them. You know what they said? "What expansion?" Boom. Mic drop. Front porch edition. She slammed the door. Not loudly. Marcia wasn't a slammer, but firmly. Passive-aggressive. Very on-brand. I walked away grinning. But the real moment of glory came 2 days later at the HOA meeting. I arrived early with snacks. Real snacks. Bagels. Cream cheese. Coffee from somewhere that didn't taste like old socks. I put it all out on the little refreshment table like a suburban Trojan horse. People showed up in waves. Some curious, some annoyed, some just there for free carbs. Marcia arrived late. Clipboard clutched like it held state secrets. She clocked the bagels. Then she saw me. Smile. Full teeth. No fear. I took my seat near the front, right next to Teresa, a board member with sensible shoes and the deep, weary look of someone who'd sat through too many of Marcia's rants about lawn height. The meeting started. Usual crap. Fences. Dogs. Someone's gnome got stolen again. Then I raised my hand. "Yes, James," Marcia said through clenched teeth. "Jim," I said cheerfully. "I have a quick item. Actually, a few." And then I unloaded. I handed copies to every board member. Spoke clearly, calmly, like I was presenting a case in court, not a passive-aggressive neighborhood tribunal. Unauthorized destruction of private property. No permit filings. Falsified justification to contractors. History of similar behavior. Evidence of deliberate boundary tampering. By the end, the room was dead silent. Even the guy who never stops chewing gum was still. Marcia tried to recover. "This is all a misunderstanding," she said, her voice a touch too high. "It was for the benefit of the neighborhood." "That's interesting," I said, "because my tomatoes didn't seem to benefit." That line got a laugh. A real one. And in that moment, Marcia knew the tide was turning. But she wasn't done yet. Karen never quits at the first sign of losing. She just reloads. And I was ready. After the HOA meeting, I figured Marcia would retreat, lick her wounds, and maybe, just maybe, move on to hassling someone else about their non-regulation solar lighting. Nope. Karen doubled down. Within 72 hours, I received, firstly, a formal complaint about unpermitted decorative elements. Translation, she didn't like my bird bath. Secondly, a warning notice that my vehicle may be in violation of street visibility policies. Translation, my truck was parked legally, but in her line of sight. Thirdly, and my personal favorite, a written request for clarification about excessive porch loitering. That's right, porch loitering. Apparently, drinking coffee while sitting in my own rocking chair and making extended eye contact with her clipboard patrol counted as a code violation. I laughed so hard I had to wipe tears off my porch rail. But she wasn't just trying to annoy me. She was trying to paint me as a problem. So I flipped the script. Step 1. Reputation cleanup. I invited a few of the quieter neighbors over for burgers one Saturday. Nothing big, just a friendly backyard get-together, extra smoky on purpose. People brought beer. Stories came out. And suddenly, everyone was a lot more willing to talk about that time Marcia tried to find me for planting tulips. Apparently, she'd been pulling this stuff for years. The only difference? I was the first one who knew how to fight back. Step 2. Information warfare. I filed a Freedom of Information request with the city to get copies of all prior complaints filed by or involving the Ridgepoint Acres HOA. Guess whose name showed up the most? Marcia. By a landslide. She'd filed 93 formal complaints over the past 4 years. That's one every 2 weeks, not including holidays. She was basically running a one-woman campaign against Joy. Step 3. Bring in the cavalry. I compiled everything into a neat, 2-page summary and passed it to Teresa from the board. Turns out, Teresa was so over Marcia's nonsense, she didn't even blink before saying, "You know what? I think it's time we voted on her authority privileges." Then came the tipping point. I got home one afternoon and found a contractor's van in my driveway. Not near my house. Not on the street. In my driveway. Guy gets out, clipboard in hand. I swear, if I see one more clipboard this year, I'm turning them all into firewood. "You the homeowner?" he asked. "Yes, and unless you're delivering free pizza, I'd like to know why you're standing on my tomatoes crime scene." I was told to start prep work for a community bench installation. Says here, HOA approved. He showed me the form. You want to guess whose name signed off on it? Marcia. No board vote. No hearing. No authorization. She just tried to pull the same stunt again, only bigger. This time she wanted to pour concrete for a shared seating area on what was still my property. She was testing me, like I hadn't already drop-kicked her plans into the sun last time. I told the contractor, politely, that if he touched a single shovel of soil, I'd call the sheriff. Not security, not the board, the actual sheriff. He backed out of the driveway so fast, he took part of a pine cone with him. That was it. That was the moment I knew. No more warnings, no more handouts. Marcia wanted war? Time to file a formal grievance. Not with the HOA, with the state. See, most HOAs have to register under the state's nonprofit corporation rules. And Marcia? She'd been using HOA funds like a personal piggy bank, with zero board approval and zero paper trail. So I submitted a complaint. Attached evidence. Timeline. Witness statements. Photos of my poor, murdered tomatoes for dramatic effect. And I made sure to CC the HOA board, the county zoning office, and my personal favorite, Marcia's email. Subject line. Pattern of misconduct. Ridgepoint Acres HOA Leadership Violation Summary. She didn't respond. But I did get a knock on the door 2 days later. It was Teresa. She had that "we just pulled the trigger" look on her face. "We're holding an emergency vote," she said. "Removal of Marcia from the board. We've had enough." I grinned. "You need a second?" "Oh," she said, "we've got a dozen." Marcia wasn't ready for what was coming. She thought she was just dealing with a grumpy old man who liked tomatoes and porch coffee. She didn't realize I was a retired IRS agent with zero patience, a working printer, and decades of experience taking down bigger sharks than her. She tried to steal 4 feet of my yard. Now I was about to take her entire clipboard kingdom. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for Thursday night at the Ridgepoint Community Center, a building that smelled like old carpet and denial. Word spread fast. By 6:30, the folding chairs were full. By 6:45, they were dragging in extras from the storage closet. People didn't just want resolution. They wanted a show. And oh, buddy, were they about to get one. Marcia arrived 10 minutes late, wearing her signature beige cardigan and the expression of a woman who fully believed she was about to talk her way out of a sinking ship. She drilled holes in herself. She did her usual clipboard clutch, sat down at the front table, and didn't look at anyone. Not me. Not the board. Not even Teresa, who was holding a manila folder that looked suspiciously thick with evidence. Carlos, the board secretary, stood up. "We've called this meeting to address serious concerns regarding misuse of HOA authority and funds by a member of this board." The room went still. You could hear Marcia blinking. Carlos continued. "We've received multiple complaints from residents, including documented zoning violations, unauthorized construction, and financial misconduct. Tonight, the board will vote on immediate removal from position and initiation of further review by county oversight." Marcia raised a hand, slow and dramatic. "Before you vote, I'd like to say a few words." "Oh, here we go," I thought. She stood up, straightened her shoulders like a movie villain giving a last monologue before the building collapses. "I have served this community for 12 years, she began, voice dripping with self-righteousness. "I've kept it beautiful, orderly, safe. And what thanks do I get? Accusations, smears, from people who clearly don't respect structure or care about this neighborhood's long-term vision." Someone in the back muttered, "Tell that to his tomatoes." I didn't laugh, but I may have smiled. Marcia pointed a shaky hand at me. "This all started when he moved in. A man who has done nothing but create chaos, encourage rule-breaking, disrespect authority." I stood up, calm as a sunrise. "Everything I've done," I said, "has been backed by the rules you swore to uphold, but conveniently chose to ignore." I took a step forward and held up a single printed photo, a screenshot of her signature authorizing unauthorized construction, right over my property line. "You didn't enforce the rules. You weaponized them. You didn't lead. You ruled. And the second someone said no, you escalated like a toddler denied a second juice box." That got a few actual laughs. She was losing the room, and fast. Carlos cleared his throat. "The board will now vote." Marcia's face went pale. Votes were called out, one by one. Teresa, yes. Carlos, yes. All board members, yes. Then Carlos turned to her. "Marcia, per HOA bylaws, you may cast your vote last." Her jaw tightened. "I abstain." Carlos nodded. "The motion passes. Marcia is hereby removed from her position as acting president and placed under formal investigation for misconduct." And just like that, the clipboard queen was dethroned. She stood there frozen, like her entire personality had just been evicted. Clipboard dangling uselessly in her hand, like even it was embarrassed to be associated with her. Then, in true Karen form, she tried to salvage what dignity she had left. "This neighborhood," she said, voice brittle, "will fall apart without order." I leaned forward, locked eyes with her, and said, "No, it'll finally breathe." And for the first time since I moved in, the room broke into applause. Real applause. Marcia turned, walked out the door, and didn't look back. No clipboard, no power, no tomatoes to trample. The aftermath was beautiful. The new board held actual public votes. Community input became a thing. People started coming to meetings on purpose. Someone even suggested building an actual community garden, on HOA land, legally approved. I politely declined to run for office. Told them I was more useful as a watchdog with a lawn chair. Carlos later asked me what I used to do for a living. Tactical paperwork, I said. He nodded slowly. Makes sense now. A few weeks later, I saw a moving truck at Marcia's house. She didn't wave. I didn't expect her to. But as she drove off, I raised my mug and gave her a little nod. Not a goodbye. More like, try that again, and next time I'll invoice you for the mulch. The day after Marcia moved out, I finally replanted the tomatoes. New soil, new fence markers, same yard, now officially mine again, down to the last blade of grass. And let me tell you, nothing tastes better than homegrown revenge season cherry tomatoes. The neighborhood changed, too. Not overnight, but you could feel it. People started waving more, chatting. There were fewer passive-aggressive lawn signs, and a lot more, hey, do you need help moving that? Turns out, when one clipboard tyrant stops terrorizing the block with her rulebook and resting condescension face, people actually like where they live. Carlos start running the board. Teresa stayed on too, bless her soul, and they brought in 2 new members. One was an older guy with an encyclopedic knowledge of native plants, and the other was a stay-at-home dad who cared way too much about mailbox aesthetics, but in a funny way, not a felony way. They asked me to consult, now and then, which is code for, please keep watching in case we get another Marcia. I agreed. Quietly. Didn't need a title. Didn't need credit. But I did install a new sign at the edge of my lawn. Subtle. Tasteful. Just a little wooden plaque that said, private property. Trespassers will be tax audited. Most people laughed. A few looked nervous. Perfect. One afternoon, I was out front tightening the bolts on a lawn chair. Yes, again. When a woman I hadn't met before strolled by with a little dog and a suspiciously determined gait. She slowed down when she saw me. You're Jim, right? She asked. Depends who's asking, I said. I just bought Marcia's place. Oh boy. She smiled, too wide. The kind of smile people wear when they're about to ask if they can put a trampoline on your roof for the community. I heard you used to work for the IRS. I nodded slowly. She looked at her dog, then back at me. And you're the reason we have an actual voting process now. Among other things. Her smile tightened just a hair. Interesting. Then she walked off. Didn't wave. Didn't thank me. Didn't say what exactly she found interesting. I stared at her for a moment. Then I turned back to my chair, took a slow sip of coffee, and muttered, let her try. Because look, I didn't move here to fight. I moved here to rest. But if another clipboard crusader rises from the ashes, if someone thinks they're going to redefine property lines or declare war on bird baths, I'll be waiting. And this time, I've got lawn cameras, 3 binders of HOA law, and 0 patience left. The bear might be retired, but he sleeps lightly. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.